Now, some depositors of defunct microfinance and savings and loans companies are queuing at the Consolidated Bank Ghana to receive all the outstanding claims in cash. Now, this was after the government released some 3.65 billion cedis to the receiver, Eric Nananipa, to facilitate the payment. George Riafi has the details of the story.
According to the receiver, all depositors that are holding bonds as payment for all validated claims can walk into any Consolidated Bank Ghana in exchange for cash from this morning. This is to make sure the previous arrangement where a fraction of all depositors' claims were paid in cash while the remaining was in bonds spread over a period without any interest has been cancelled. The receiver in the statement released maintained that with the provision of these funds, government has been able to settle over 6 billion Ghana cedis for all validated claims to depositors of savings and loans companies as well as microfinance firms. This should bring a closure in terms of payment covering all these validated claims for these defunct financial institutions. Some depositors in the past had raised issues about this payment structure, which they argued that it wasn't good for them. The Bank of Ghana last year liquidated some savings and loans companies as well as microfinance institutions over some liquidity issues and their failure to meet some regulatory requirements.
Well, just moments after the receiver went public on this announcement, the Executive Director of the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, Mensa Thompson, argues that government is being dishonest about the payments of customers of these collapsed savings and loans companies. Well, he joins us with more on his views and his thoughts about this entire thing. We're so grateful that you joined us. First of all, what is it that government isn't telling us that you're much more concerned about?
Well, a number of things. If you look at the briefings in Parliament by the Deputy Finance Minister, Mr. Edubuahen, last month, they told us that about 96% of the customers of the microfinance and savings and loans companies have been paid. The President also in an address told us that about 98% of them have been paid. The Finance Minister again also repeated the same claim that 98% of the customers have been paid.
But now, there is just mathematical arguments that 98% of customers being paid doesn't equate to 98% of them being fully paid. So some of them could have received some, half the payment so far. So
the issue is this, and if I could give you a breakdown of the numbers. Now, the total number of customers who were affected were 3.2 million. So you have 1.1 for the savings and loans, and then 2.1 for the microfinance institutions. So 3.2 million customers. Now, the receiver in a press briefing told us that they've received claims for about 360,000 people. Now, out of the 360,000, they validated 297,000 of them and rejected and rejected 97,000. So 63,000.
That's based on the validation process.
So based on the validation process, they rejected 63,000 of those claims, leaving 297,000 of these customers, which they paid with cash, a mixture of cash and bonds. Now, later they came back that some 143,000 people filed claims late, and so they have, added them to the list. So in effect, if you look at the number of people who have been paid with both cash and bonds, they are about 400,000 people, which is less than 13% of the number of people who have received claims. And so we were surprised, and that's why we challenged the minister and the president's claim that 98% of the customers of these institutions have been paid. And so yesterday when we heard the announcement that these people, government has released 3.6 billion to pay these customers, we were wondering, if government has paid 96% of the customers, then who are they going to pay with this 3.6 billion that they have actually released to CBG for some payments? And so clearly you see the inconsistency.
So you feel, you argue that there is some sense of inconsistency despite the mathematical argument already that 98% of most of these customers being paid, as per what government is stating, does not categorically mean in quantity that they fully had the payments made them in cash, full in cash, because we do know that previously most of these payments were made in bonds, in sales and whatnot. So this argument in this whole sense could be kind of jerky. But let's come down to some other issues that you've raised.
With a mixture of cash and bonds.
Exactly.
And so if you have 3.2 million customers who have been affected, and you pay a little over 400,000 people with cash and bonds, what happens to the remaining over 2 million people? What happens to them? Do they lose their investment? And as we speak, the government does not have data on 34 microfinance institutions. 34.
What's the proof?
Here's the proof. Here's a list of all. I can mention all of them. 34 microfinance savings and loans. Government does not have any data on them, and so they can't pay them. They haven't even done the validation or claims for even one of them. And so on what basis did the president tell us that they've paid 98% of the customers when they don't have data on 34 microfinance institutions? And that gives you a total of about 201,527,000 people who fall under these 34 microfinance institutions, who government, as we speak, do not have data on these people.
Well, we shall fact check most of these claims there, but today we're seeing most of these customers receive the monies. We're having our reporters on the ground who are saying that as at now, some customers have received their funds, others haven't received their funds. What are you receiving from the ground?
Well, I think we have asked government to bring more information. I mean, just saying that you've released 3.6 billion to CBG alone cannot be. First of all, you see, I think government has not been a bit transparent with this payment of customers' processes. Because, one, we need to know how many customers have been affected. Apart from the data that we've gotten, how many have been validated? How many have been rejected? How much is left? How many of these customers were paid with cash? How many were paid with bonds? One, is government telling us that the 3.6 billion is going to offset all the liabilities? So do we take it that once this 3.6 billion cedis have been given to these customers, have been given to CBG to pay these customers, does it mean that the liabilities in the microfinance and savings and loan sector is over? I think there's still scanty information what government is giving us, and just announcing that we've released 3.6 billion to CBG alone is not enough. We need an extensive audit. We need some transparency in the payment processes, because some of the customers have been complaining. They have not received a dime. Some of the customers even raised concerns about the fact that when government decided to pay them with bonds, they raised concerns.
I would want you to pull up the list of the 34 companies that you cite.
I can send it to your producers and they put it up.
It's important for us to fact check most of these information.
I can put it,
cross check whether or not these were registered with the Bank of Ghana.
So I can mention some of the names. We have Abyss Plus Microfinance Limited, which was closed in September 2014. We have African Trust Microfinance, which was closed in December 2015. AG Microfinance Limited, May 2017. Bedell was closed in May 2019. Bengay Microfinance, Bone, Common Capital, Noble Dream, Defunct, Jada, all these Royal Future Microfinance, all these companies were shut down, and as we speak, government does not have data.
They were shut down on specific grounds, of which we have information on. They were shut down on specific grounds, and I mean, there could be much more argument in terms of the information that the government doesn't have, or the BOG doesn't have on these companies,
is the data.
and even the validation processes of the customers belonging to these companies as well.
What they don't have is the data.
Which is debatable.
So the data, which is the people, for example, like maybe these are the customers of this microfinance. This is how much deposits they owe, this the liabilities of the bank. They don't have data, so they don't know who deposits what and who to pay what. They don't have that data. And if you don't have data on 34 microfinance institutions out of the over 300 which were collapsed, and you say you've paid 98% of the customers, then on what basis do you make those claims?
So you want much more clarity on these things. You want transparency on the
government must admit that it lied to the people of Ghana when it claimed that they paid 98% of the customers, because that cannot be true. And we believe that the fact check team can do that. One, they don't have data on the 34 microfinance institutions. Then again, they also, what they did was that they validated claims for just 297,000 people.
Great.
Now, 297,000 people as a percentage of 3.2 million people cannot be 98%. So even if you add this to it, you realize that there's a huge chunk of people who have not received a penny from government. Yet government says that it has paid all the customers, 98% of the customers have been paid. I think clearly that was a false claim.
Debatable, but we shall be having our eyes on the ground as we interact with most of our, our reporters on the ground who are currently speaking to most of these customers, whether they've received their funds or not, to give you updates as and when we do have them. But we're so grateful for your time, Mr. Thompson, for that particular analysis there.